Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and I figured you guys could join me for my Saturday morning coffee to talk about kind of an interesting article I saw this morning. I think I found this on either Reddit or Drudge Report. And the title of the article is 17% of young homebuyers regret their purchase, a Zillow survey finds. So I don't know if you guys remember this one. I had a pretty popular video a while back. If we search millennials regret their home purchase, I got the #2 ranked video here, and this one did pretty good. It's got 37,000 views, but there was a ton of engagement, ton of comments. People really had a lot to say about this story, and then you can see a lot of other people have done this story, and you know their stories get really good views as well. Business Insider 700,000. My man Graham Stephan did a video on this topic recently. Oh, he's got the #1 ranked video, 242,000. So this is a hot topic. It gets views. We always kind of joke about how the media loves like clickbait and dramatizing stories and things like that. So one of the first things I thought about when I saw this story was like, well, shoot, you know, like this video is from a year ago, and it was about how almost 70% of millennials regret buying their home. How 1 year later is that number only 17% of young home buyers regretting their home purchase? And I think the difference here, I got to get out of here in a minute. I got to go get my emissions tested. I'm way behind on that. Don't want to get pulled over. So I got to do that this morning. So I don't have time to really compare these stories side by side. But from what I can gather, and if anybody else wants to check into this, I left the link to the article about the 70% in this video. You can search this video, read the article side by side, and kind of see what the difference is. However, I think what the difference between these two studies or surveys are is I believe this one had to do with people regretting their home purchase for pretty much any reason, right? Like I bought a home in the wrong area, I overspent on the home, I don't like the layout of the home, I got the wrong mortgage. Whereas this article seems to focus strictly on people being unhappy with their mortgage, as far as, at least that's kind of what I got out of it. Now, here's what I found to be really kind of funny. And I think we might title this video something like 17% of home buyers regret their home purchase and the media is a joke. Because here's why, right? The media loves these clickbait stories about millennials. This is kind of an interesting story, but if we go down here to the bottom, this article was written by mortgage broker Jeff Lazerson. Jeff Lazerson can be reached at 949-334-2424 or at jlazerson@mortgagegrader.com. So we pretty much have an advertisement for mortgage broker Jeff Lazerson disguised as news. I also thought the title of this article was kind of funny, right? Because 70% of millennials regretting their home purchase, like that is kind of staggering. Like that, if I were a millennial home buyer, I am a millennial, I'm not a home buyer right now. I already have a home or two. But if I were a millennial home buyer right now, I'd be like, wow, there's a 70% chance that I'm going to be unhappy with my purchase. This one's 17%. Like this story would look a lot different if it was 77 or is that 77%? Let's see, 100 to 90, 90 to 83. This article would look, I'm bad at math if you can't tell. This article would read a lot differently if it were 83% of millennial home buyers are happy with their home purchase, right? But they write it 17% of young home buyers regret their home purchase. So, like I said, this one has more to do with people being unhappy about the mortgage they got. Survey says buyer's remorse. 17% of millennial and Generation Z home buyers from ages 18 to 34 regret purchasing a home instead of renting, according to a Zillow survey. Speculating as to why, Josh Lur, industry development at Zillow, owned Mortech, said getting the wrong mortgage may have driven that disappointment. For example, Zillow showed 22% of buyers had regrets about their type of mortgage, and 27 to 30% said their rates and payments are too high. Now, one of the things in this article that I thought was really interesting, and I'm going to get into that in this video, they suggested that young home buyers, millennials, first-time home buyers, talk to 5 friends, relatives, coworkers who have bought a home and ask them about their experience, right? Because I remember when I bought my first home, and I bought my first home in my early 20s, and I was confused as hell. Like, you know, people say, oh, we'll read your mortgage documents, it's all in it. You know, nobody's going to read like 150 pages of mortgage documents. And like my girlfriend probably would. She's the type of person who reads every manual to everything she ever buys. I'm not like that. I literally just don't read shit. I know it's stupid, but that's what I do. But even if you do read this stuff, they're written in such complicated language that nobody really is going to understand or catch everything. So talk to coworkers, talk to friends, and I'll share with you guys some of kind of my pitfalls or things that I regret about getting my mortgage. But moving on, speculating as to why, we already talked about that. Lear pointed out that 57% of millennials shopped lenders online, yet they didn't know what they didn't know regarding the details of the various financing instruments and finding the best fit for them. My suggestion for any would-be home buyer is to ask 5 of your closest homeowner friends what mistakes they made and what regrets they had, if any, when they were mortgage shopping for the first time. Perhaps more importantly, ask them what they did especially well or what they were most proud of as part of their first mortgage shopping adventure. Separately, Harris Poll conducted a consumer survey on behalf of technology company Fiserv. Here are 5 highlights to choosing a mortgage or home equity line of credit lender. So when it came to why people selected a lender, 50% cited the interest rate as a reason for choosing a lender, 39% cited low fees, 37% cited customer service and company reputation, 29% cited knowledgeable staff, and lastly, a whopping 31% of mortgage applicants were not highly satisfied with the mortgage process because it took too long, involved too much paperwork, interest rates, fees, and origination fees were too high, or poor communication with the lender. So, when I bought my first home in my early 20s, I was clueless. Fortunately, I had a good real estate agent. She recommended the mortgage broker, who, if anybody is in Illinois and needs a mortgage broker, hit me up, man. I got the best mortgage broker. His name's Keith, but he helped me with my first home purchase. He was very good. I was a young home buyer. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a ton of money. And he really kind of held my hand and walked me through the process. And didn't make me feel like stupid about doing so. And he also got me into a bunch of like awesome programs that didn't make him any money. So like he was saying, there's a bunch of programs where like if you make under 50 grand a year, there's certain programs out there for you. There's certain programs for first time home buyers where you can get a lot of like your mortgage interest back. I think there was one program where you could like avoid some of your homeowners taxes. Like there were a bunch of programs that a mortgage lender doesn't get any money for getting you into, so most of them don't do extra work to get you into them. But he was a great guy, man. He got me at the closing table. I had to show like $9 grand on paper, but I actually wound up walking away from closing with a check for $1,700. And I didn't wind up taking advantage of this other program because I was thinking about maybe flipping the house or renting it. But there was another program where I guess like as long as I lived in the house for 5 years or something like that, I got like a lot of mortgage into I forget what it was, but there was another really good program. I had all the paperwork to do it. I just never filed it because I in the back of my mind, I had thought about flipping the house. But I used this gentleman, Keith, again on my second mortgage. And I think he used to be like a financial advisor or something. So just really sharp guy. Like he catches every number. I remember after the mortgage closing, he was like, John, I just wanted to let you know that like they moved. We had a little hiccup at closing. The homeowner had to do a repair to the water heater like while we were at the closing table, and so some numbers got shuffled around on the closing. He was like, John, I just wanted to let you know that there's like $59 that didn't go on the mortgage papers that you're going to be responsible for taxes for. Now, taxes on $59 is like, it's nothing. I mean, it's like a couple dollars, but like he's that like attention to detail where he's catching like everything. I remember when he was, obviously you have to turn over all your financials to him. He's like, look, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I hope you don't mind me like getting in your business, but I just want, you're sitting on a lot of cash. Like, cash really does nothing for you. This money should really be invested. So like, just really a good guy, really kind of cares about his clients, really knowledgeable. So I think having a good mortgage broker, not only having a good mortgage broker who's like knowledgeable, I used to work in a mortgage office when I was younger. When I was going through college, I used to work in a call center, basically like setting up leads for mortgage brokers. And I also had a buddy who was a mortgage broker. And way back in the day, like back around 2008, like it's very easy to become a mortgage broker. You got to like read up on it a little bit. You take a test and you're a mortgage broker. The mortgage broker office I worked at, like, I mean, people were doing coke in there. There were always like little airplane bottles of liquor in the bathroom. I mean, it was like a frat house. And mortgage brokers were making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. a lot of the guys like barely graduated from high school, but they had the gift of gab. They could talk to people and they were great salesmen. They weren't necessarily super knowledgeable about financing and mortgages. So finding somebody who's actually knowledgeable about mortgages, is going to put you into the right mortgage, knows about all the program, is incredibly important. But also having a mortgage broker who communicates with you, is on top of things. I've had a couple buddies who bought houses and like it's coming down to closing day and like the mortgage broker or somebody in a mortgage broker's office forgot to file some paperwork, so their closings are getting pushed back. So I think, almost above rates, I think having somebody who's knowledgeable and has good customer service and a good company reputation is almost one of the most important things that you can look out for. I know a lot of people like going to a bank or a credit union. One of the benefits of going to a mortgage broker is that they can shop around with dozens, if not hundreds, of different lenders, so you're not tied into one particular lender. I actually went to my bank at first to get a mortgage on the home that I'm in now, and they approved me for like $500,000, but they also wanted 25% down, which is crazy, and they weren't budgeting on the 25%. I wound up calling my guy. He got me a great rate. One thing I do kind of regret with my home purchase is, and my lender like let me know about this, but I really like sitting on cash. I was in a business that was very risky. If we lost payment processing or something like that, money could dry up for months at a time. So I like sitting on a lot of cash. It makes me comfortable. I didn't want to put the full 20% down, which is pretty stupid. Like I would say almost always put the whole 20% down, but I wanted to sit on cash, so I didn't put the full 20% down. I think I wound up putting 10% down. I wound up buying my rate down a couple points. And I wound up buying out of having to pay PMI. So I don't have to pay mortgage insurance, but I put down a chunk of money up front to not do that. All in all, I wound up throwing about 14 grand at buying my points lower, as well as getting rid of PMI. Now, in the long run, as long as I stay in this house or own this house for 5 years, I'm going to wind up coming out ahead. But I should have just put the 20% down from the beginning. I think it wound up being like, I don't know. I probably got to hold on to about 20 grand extra in cash. But yeah, that's some of like my mistakes, complaints, whatever, about like my mortgage experience. But otherwise, I mean, I'm happy about the house that I'm in. I'm happy with the area I'm in. I'm happy with the payment. I can afford the payment. Moving on in this article, for those non-homeowners, or actually, where were we? Okay, so we talked about why people pick their lender. For those non-homeowners, why didn't they purchase? According to the Harris poll, they didn't have enough for a down payment, 31%. They're either not interested in purchasing a home, 24%, or they're happy renting. They have bad credit, 20%. That's the reason why they didn't buy. Too expensive to buy, 20%. How did borrowers begin their search? 30% online. 29% recommendation from a real estate agent. That's how I initially found my guy, who I used on the second house. Contacted by primary financial institutions, that would be like your bank reached out to you, your credit union reached out to you. Considered previous lenders, 26%, so I guess that's also kind of what I did. Or a referral from family, 23%. As a little bit of a side note, a while back I shared a video. There's actually been some changes to, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or whatever. For anybody who's considering like house hacking, buying a duplex, buying a house with like an in-law suite or something like that, a coach house, they actually changed lending requirements, and I believe you're now able to use, I believe it's 30% of potential future rental value to qualify for a home purchase. So, I mean, what that means is if I'm buying a house for $200,000 and that house happens to have an apartment above the garage, an in-law suite, something, I believe it's as long as it has its own bathroom and its own kitchen and its own entrance, whatever that could be rented for, you can qualify for 30% of it. So when you get your appraisal done, if I'm buying this house for 200 grand, it's got an above the garage apartment that rents for $1,000 a month, I can use 30% of that to qualify for my mortgage, so I could use 300 of that. So total aside, but for anybody who is in the market to buy a home, something interesting to think about. From Freddie Mac's weekly survey, the 30-year fixed rate averaged 3.65%. Up 1 basis point from last week's. The 15-year rate was a fixed average rate of 3.14%. down 2 basis points from last week. The Mortgage Bankers Association reported an 8.1% increase in loan application volume. Bottom line, assuming the borrower gets a 30-year fixed rate on a conforming $484,000 loan, last year's payment was a whopping $299 higher than this week's payment. So mortgage rates are like, I think that's what a lot of people are running into right now is like, oh, well, you know, the housing market is kind of overinflated right now. I think there's going to be a pullback. There's going to be boomers selling. Prices are going to come down. There's going to be more availability on the market. I don't really want to buy right now. But what you do have to consider is rates going up make a huge difference, man. I remember I literally almost had the chance to buy my dream house, and it was a little bit more than I wanted to spend. Really, really unique house. It was kind of this very like modern stucco house, 2 stories, kind of like lofted, like a lot of like cool, like it was kind of a smart home. They had like smart lights, smart like AC and heating system. Just really, really badass home. And at the time, my credit was a little bit worse, and also mortgage rates were a little bit higher at the time. And the payment was $1,900. And that was like more than I wanted to pay. So then I think I'd like recently left my full-time job, so I was 100% reliant on my business. And like I said, I like having cash. I like knowing that I'm really secure. So I wound up passing on this home. I wound up buying a home for almost the same price, maybe 10 or 20 grand less, a year or two later. But mortgage rates had come down a little bit. My credit had improved a little bit. I had something stupid. Like my car got broken into. I had to get new credit cards. I forgot to change over one of my credit cards in terms of like paying off the bill. And I had a couple late payments. So that kind of wound up eventually going off. And basically just getting a slightly better rate. Essentially the same home purchase went from being $1,900 to $1,300 and some change, which is what I pay my mortgage now. So, you know, rates make a huge difference. There were a bunch of like interesting comments. I always like reading the comments and hearing people like shit on us millennials or whatever. So I figured we'd read a few of the comments here. Let's see. You need a roof over your head, and no way in hell I'm living somewhere where I can't do my own things without someone telling me I can't do that. Also, these kids nowadays are effing lazy and don't even know how to hammer a nail. So, you know, I think this is kind of an interesting comment. I'm not handy at all. It's a huge pain in the ass hiring contractors and things to do stuff. Not only is it incredibly expensive, if, you know, contractors, man, they're like notorious, and really everything from contractors, handymen, plumbers, electricians, nobody fucking shows up on time. It's hard to book appointments. Half the guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. So being a homeowner is kind of a hassle in that sense, especially if you're not handy. I do get this guy's point, though. One of my big things was I hated being a renter. I remember in college I was growing weed in my closet, and it was a pain in the ass when the landlord would come over and I'd have to like shut down the whole little closet, grow up, you know, for her to inspect the house. I got dogs. A lot of landlords don't allow dogs. So there really is something to be said for owning your own property and not having to like listen to other people's rules. Let's see. This guy says, man, it was the late 90s and I bought a home using like Lending Tree. Couldn't have been easier. So I think this guy's shitting on millennials, saying, why are we aggravated? The home buying process isn't complicated or difficult or long. I think it's a pain in the ass, but that's just me. 57% of millennials shopped online lenders, yet they didn't know what they didn't know regarding the details of financing. Yeah, you know, nobody, like I said, nobody reads through all that stuff. It's written in a very complicated way, so I don't fault people for that. None of the reasons cited are the real reasons. They find out they have to maintain the property almost daily, cut grass, provide their own home security. Finding out plumbers, electricians, HVAC repairs are real expensive. All the things they didn't have to do at their parents' home. The real winner is illegals. Won't do those jobs homeowners should. Oh, that's right. Unhappy 17. I'm not sure what the hell that guy was saying. That is the thing, though. You know, I always like the idea of owning a home. I got a nice backyard. I have my friends over. We have a fire out there. You know, I can blaze up a joint. I'm not having to worry about throwing a towel under the door so my neighbors don't smell it. Like, there's all types of, you know, I could have my dogs run in the backyard. If I wanted to get another dog, I don't have to get permission from a landlord. There's a ton of benefits to owning your own home, having your own yard, all that, as opposed to an apartment or a condo. But there's definitely something to be said for condos, man. My folks moved into a condo, and like they're like, oh, it's so easy to clean, no home maintenance. Like, they're really loving it, and I would almost consider a condo for those reasons. Like, it is either a huge drain of money or time having to like maintain a yard and things like that. Probably because buying a home is a questionable investment at best. That's another interesting thing. Years ago, everybody was like, buy a home, buy a home, buy a home. And it seems like millennials and Gen Zers are a little bit less interested in buying homes. It's tough to tell whether that's because they can't afford homes or kind of the media narrative that everyone wants to live in cities and people want experiences and not things, and people like to rent. So kind of the attitude towards home ownership is changing a little bit. If you didn't notice, there was not a mention of professional real estate agents. That's home buyers' first mistake. No agent. Bet that most of the 83% had a buyer agent, shopped for homes for a while, learned about mortgages, and only made a decision to buy when they felt comfortable. I'm not, I don't know anybody who's buying homes without a realtor. As a buyer, the seller is the one paying, essentially paying your realtor. They're paying the both sides of realtors on a purchase. So as a home buyer, there's little to no reason to not use an agent. If you just wind up using the seller's agent, they become your agent by default, and they get both sides of the commission. Now, some agents may be willing to work with you if you approach them and say, hey, look, I'm not going to get an agent if I use you. Can I get a kickback? That might even be illegal. I'm not sure, but maybe there's some negotiating room there. I always notice in articles like this that like real estate agents, I'm sure Don Englinger is a real estate agent himself, and it's always funny. There's always people like, one side is like, oh, real estate agents are a bunch of fucking overpaid idiot door openers, and the other side's like, we're incredibly valuable, we're worth every penny. And I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. I think a great agent is worth their weight in gold, but I think there's a lot more shitty agents than there are good agents. Let's see. I bet all of them had a buyer's agent who slammed them through the process as fast as possible. And if the agents gave up a few thousand of their grossly inflated commission, the realtor could have paid the loan costs. Win-win. But you and I both know realtors don't do that. So, here's kind of that exact argument that I'm talking about. And this next guy's like, look, the agent just wants the commission. He doesn't care about getting people into the right home or care about their well-being. Like, he just wants to ram that deal through, get his commission, and move on to the next. Yeah, how can we make it easier through the without the unlock box? Okay, so here's somebody else kind of shitting on realtors. This is kind of funny to me. Yeah, how could we ever make it through the intricacies of the home buying process without someone to unlock the lockbox or put out a plate of fresh baked cookies? And this is kind of true. Like, when I went on my recent home purchase, my realtor was a great guy. He was helpful. I don't have anything negative to say about him. But when it came to any complicated issues, everything went through my attorney. So I guess the argument could be, well, could I just hire an attorney for $500 and say fuck the real estate agent and not give them 3% of the home purchase, which winds up being thousands of dollars? The attorney is the actual smart one who really kind of knows the process and is going to save your ass if it really comes down to it. Whereas the agent, like I said, there are some great agents out there, but the agent is kind of a glorified door opener and cookie baker. Hey, Don, what open houses were you visiting that had fresh baked cookies? The last one I visited had a bag of hard cookies from the 99-cent store. Let's see. This is the most wildly tilted story I've ever read. How did I not miss the point that 83% of young home buyers don't regret buying their purchase? Jeff Lazerson is an idiot. 4 out of 5 millennials agree, buy a home. So yeah, I'll link to this story if any of you guys kind of want to read through the little comment battle there. But yeah, I always think these millennial stories are kind of fun. I always like to cover them. They do well view-wise and seem to get people engaged. People like talking about this stuff. I also thought it was kind of interesting how the Mercury News is essentially putting out a full-page ad from a mortgage broker. That was kind of hilarious to me as well. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Have a great weekend.